Good evening, Madam Aurea, my fellow classmates, and all who are watching my video. Salutations for everybody. Welcome to a segment called Mirroring. This video is going to focus on my philosophical theory about mirroring and likewise understand further the concepts and ideas of why my philosophical theory is good. Now, the problem arises with our learners of today. If you notice that all of us are adjusting to the new normal. Yes, this pandemic has caused many lives and many situations that can hurt our everyday living, such as financial corporates are gradually closing, education establishments are confused of what the curriculum is all about. Likewise, the situation wherein some companies, even big companies like Guess and Swiss, are gradually closing, and many more things that happen in the pandemic. All of us are adjusting. But are we really adjusting? It's because we want to return to the normal that we are used to be, or are we really adjusting? It's because we want to evolve a simple tradition into a great evolution in our process. Remember, all of us are in the state of rediscovering the world. As Annie Skin says, we don't see the world as it is, but we see the world as we are. So, what is the major problem nowadays? Sure. As arises here, our world is now filled with trials, tribulations, sufferings, and death. Lots of death, wherein we are death in our own culture. Death that some people are thinking the world is ending, and some are thinking hope is now the price. But notice that I'm going to show you this. Look at my picture here. If you notice, my fellow friends, this is what hope brings. And Christ is teaching us on how we can bring hope in our everyday lives. And as an educator, we ourselves are going to overcome these struggles and tribulations. As philosophers, we are the first one who doesn't complain to the situation, but rather evolve and transcend towards this situation to make it understandable, flexible, and at the same time, the new normal will be exposed to all of us. Commonly, we can see the struggles by means of online connections, parents' struggles by means of their capabilities and intellectual inquiries, mindsets of moving on in some situations, such as they still retain their capabilities, and many more. As I stand here, I'm symbolizing now that we as philosophers have new hope for this. We as philosophers can do and transcend further in order for us to understand and to reflect upon our actions towards the betterment of society instead of restraining it. But the sad reality is, take a look at this clip. Since the March 2020 lockdown has been approved by our mayor and all across the globe experiencing lockdowns because of extreme quarantine measures of the COVID-19, many people have struggled not only physically, not only emotionally, but psychologically. As a result, people are losing hope. People are now in a process wherein the world is going to end. But there are still people who still believes that hope still remains and everything comes in a new. In our educational standpoints, we can see here that in our world is gradually changing not for the better, but for the worse. Some say that this is the worst year of all, filled with trials, tribulations, and drama. However, remember an old saying that to change for the better, you are willing to get hurt. Because suffering does not make us bitter, but better. Nevertheless, despite of these situations, there are common struggles, especially in our world of education, filled with pains, sufferings, and confusions of how we will adjust. For instance, in our educational system, we can observe the fact that there are many students who are not totally well equipped with the technology needed for the 21st century learners. Thus, the government decided to have the blended learning. However, this definition of blended learning becomes a little bit problematic because it only addresses what it's intended to address. As an illustration, let me prove it to you. Okay, in the implementing rules and regulations using social media, using the news for the deliberation of the intellectual inquiries, using modules and the like. But the biggest question here is, can everybody adapt in the situation? Yes, it's called blended learning, but does it really embraces the definition of blended when there are para-teachers cannot even comprehend for those who are in the hazardous areas or the rural areas that don't have access to communication at all? Not to mention in some situations wherein we are all financially incapable during this time, it's because COVID has struck our businesses and our daily lives drastically, resulting to the halt of our economic lifestyle, which results to many bankruptcy. Many parents are struggling to send their children to school, though some institutions have the subsidies from governments, especially from college, the tertiary education subsidy, the KITEA from TESDA, and many more from the TSS, from elementary to high school students. This already proves to the point that many institutions, and especially government officials, are finding means and ways to solve these pandemic situations wherein people can survive. Not only that, the financial problems are not the only ones that we need to consider. Remember, we are all in a traumatic experience. We cannot just simply say that the students are okay, because you might know, I'm not gonna mention names, some of them might experience COVID, which leads to a traumatic experience. Do we just give trust, as Kunin says in classroom management, rather, that we can just simply inject all the lessons? That is the things that we need to consider. Likewise, of course, the psychological behavior of this is they just want to relax. In fact, because of this psychological turmoil, some are also declaring academic freeze. If we notice, Jonas has emphasized that education should not stop. If it will stop, when will it continue? A rhetorical question that was asked by many people. As a result, educational system continues to uprise and continues to be on service despite of COVID-19 restrictions, which results further to many people keep on adjusting. As a great example for this is the opening of classes of August 24 was immediately jumped to October 5 because of unpreparedness. This is a good example wherein this results to too much compliance and too much assurance that everything will be okay, not anticipating the what-ifs of the situation. As a result, many parents are head-scratching if we are technically ready for this blended learning. Especially, we have also problems from the internet, wherein the Philippines only have the maximum capability of 7 Mbps in their internet speed, whereas in other countries have a 200 plus internet speed when they're studying. A classical example is North Korea, and South Korea has the greatest internet speed entire time. compared to other countries like America and Australia. Those are the things that you need to consider. However, how do we understand further these major problems that we're encountering right now? Not to mention that there's also one major problem that we need to consider, and that is the teachers themselves. Some teachers are very strict and still reject the idea of change. I'm not saying they're perennialists, but it's so difficult them to swallow about the change of this COVID-19, which results that they're still applying to the traditionality of teaching. Even though some adopted, others still reject that idea because they still believe that face-to-face is very efficient. And not to mention, because of that situation, some teachers observed, based on what we are reading from articles, that the teachers observe that the students are not learning because, however, the biggest question arises of all these problems is, do we reflect on both aspects of the parents, teachers, and students regarding that matter? To understand further this, I decided to walk on a journey. A simple journey wherein I am traveling to see one of my close friends. This close friend of mine, or I should say a former student of mine, will help us understand further about this new normal setup. Even though some answers will be resolved, however, some answers will also guide us on what can we do rather in order for us to overcome these problems. So here I am traveling to San Jose to visit two of my friends. The first one will be Andre Marnelli Baluyot, and the second one will be our famous national speaker who is just recently acknowledged by the Philippines, my cousin Miguel Feliciano Baluyot Jr. Here I am, walking down the streets of San Jose, reflecting of what I have observed a while ago in the challenges of the 21st century learners. Here, I decided to talk to my alumni student who is now currently a high school teacher at Wellspring at Capas. Here, he's now the pioneer of our products at Holy Cross to implement the new normal way of learning. Whether it's distance learning, online learning, or any kind of learning, the flexible learning is one of the trends in order for one to understand the learnings of individuals. Here, I want to curiously know of how these new products of mine from Holy Cross will adapt in the new normal. Good evening. Again, this is Sir Ong, and I'm here today with my former student and now a proud alumnus of Concepcion Holy Cross College, Miss Andre Marnelli Baluyot, to help us to understand further these concepts of the struggles of the new normal learning. So, Miss Andre, thank you very much for taking my invitation. But I will ask some 3 questions regarding this matter. Okay? Can you please enough? Thank you very much. Miss Andre, I have a question for you. First question: how do you feel about the new normal in teaching in our present time?
So the new normal is very hard. Kasi yung setup natin is parang biglaan, dumating lang. Kaya nahihirapan tayo kasi hindi tayo equipped pa para dun sa new normal setup natin.
Oh yeah, precisely. Because sometimes the problem is all of us are affected with this pandemic and we are surprised of how we can handle this situation. But here's the follow-up question. What are your struggles in handling learning and discipline when it comes to teaching, especially the new normal?
Sa learning kasi, kung hindi mo siya gagawa ng paraan, is hindi mo maitutuloy yung ginagawa mo. Which is talagang mahirap kasi dapat marami kang bala na nakakasa dyan para lang yung learning ng bata is maputol.
Can you tell me your experience? One significant experience that you will never forget?
Sa pagtuturo.
Oh, doon. In that new normal concept.
Okay, dahil hindi pa naman ako umabot sa 1 year dahil ilang months pa lang ako nagtuturo. Ang pinaka mahirap na nangyari is si student gusto niya na ayaw niya mag-aral kasi kilala siya sa pagkatamad niya estudyante. Ngayon, pinag-uusapan namin sa klase na si ganito, si ganyan, ayaw pumasok, pero okay naman ang internet connection. Siyempre, mahirap i-motivate yung bata na pumasok ka, mag-aral ka. So, ang ginagawa ko sa kanya is, pinapatawag ko siya sa classmate niya. Ngayon, ang ginagawa naman ng classmate niya, tinatawag niya. It's either magkasama sila or nasa bahay. Yun nga lang, kasi pag nasa bahay siya, mas mahirap yan yung learning. Kasi walang nagmo-motivate sa kanyang kasama na, uy, mag-aral na tayo, ganyan. So, yung kasama niya, na classmate niya, dahil maglalapit lang sila ng bahay, pinapatawag ko sa kanya. Tapos, pag tinawag niya, so, isa na lang sila nung ginagamit na device. Ganyan, alam mo na may kasama siya na nagtuturo din sa kanya. Hindi lang ikaw.
Thank you very much for that. And I hope that that would be your way to solve that certain problems. Because sabi nga naman, there are solutions for every problem. And therefore, this is going to be a little bit sensitive. Which do you prefer in our mode of learning? Is it the old way or the old normal or the new normal?
Okay. So, new normal, kagaya na pag-usapan natin kanina. Kaya lang naman ginamit ang online class today dahil sa pandemic. But kung pag-aaralan mo yung online class, matagal lang ginagamit yan, lalo na yung mga nag-homeschool. Okay. Pero, kung tatanungin mo kung traditional or yung new, of course gusto ko yung traditional na face-to-face. Kasi mas madaling ma-establish sa face-to-face yung rapport with your students rather than nasa online kayo. Na, kasi yung estudyante kapag ayaw niya, hindi ka niya talaga haharapin. Kahit nasabihin mo, please open your cameras, hindi yan mag-open lalo na kung ayaw niya talaga. Kahit maganda or stable yung internet connection, wala kang magagawa. Pero, there are other ways naman. Yun nga lang, kailangan mo pag-isipan ng maigi kung paano mo gagawin na i-motivate pa, na i-motivate yung bata.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Ma'am Henry, for that. And now, you understand further of what some teachers understand about the new normal. But here's the biggest question. The question now rises, how do these teachers overcome this struggle? I'm going to further explore and understand further about my philosophical idea about mirroring. And I'm going to ask one of the finest Filipino speakers and philosophers here by the name Sir Miguel Balulit Jr. So with that being said, let's thank Mami Andre for her cooperation, and hopefully I'm going to see you later in Sir Miggy's house. It seems that Mommy Andre's answers give me a lot of reflections to think about. Like, the first one is, what can we do as a teacher and a philosopher to overcome these trials instead of complaining? And number two, how can we overcome this? And how can we manage to evolve the 21st century of teaching? Especially these struggles are extremely common in our society nowadays, especially in the new normal. Maybe Miggy has an answer to all my problems. Let's find out. Good evening. I'm here today with Sir Miggy Balayut to help us understand on how he handles the new normal education. Sir Miggy, Good evening.
Good evening.
So, Sir Miggy, I'm very curious of how you handle this new normal. So, I have some series of questions in order for you to help us understand of how you cope up this matter. So, here's the first question. As a philosopher, what is new normal for you?
Well, when we're talking about the new normal for me is a new sense of opportunity for us wherein we can do something new. This is a certain situation that calls for us to think out of the box because since education before is only on the four corners of the classroom, and then after that we open universities, and then later on probably not very early, but I think over 5 years, big universities in Manila, such as De La Salle University, Ateneo de Manila University, and UST have been using online learning already. So they call it flipped classroom. So now that we have the new normal, it gives us a new way of understanding, a new way of perspective in terms of education, and then it helps us to further build more strategies in order to find effective ways on studying or in education. So meaning all of us now are evolving. So it gives us a new perspective, a new horizon, and a new understanding on the meaning of education. So for me, this new normal is a new perspective for us in order for us to understand better what we are doing and where we have been, where we are now, and where we are heading right now.
Very interesting, Sir Miggy. Now, let's continue on. So, the next question is, based on your definition, how do you incorporate this in the educational standpoint in teaching the youth of today?
In terms of looking at everything as a new perspective for me, meaning for me, it's not new perspective anymore because I've been studying at De La Salle University and I've been doing my practicum there, meaning I also do teaching there. So this is not new for me because we've been trained with this kind of situation. We've been trained with this so-called new normal. We've been doing this for almost 3 years now. So for me, I'm incorporating it in order for not only my students, but especially where I am teaching right now. I am helping teachers on how to do online teaching. What are the different strategies in online teaching? How we can do online teaching. So when I give demo to them, when I taught them how online teaching is and how we do it, so they were all amazed because this is the first time that they do it, and that there is no more interaction, meaning there is a limited interaction in front of the screen, and unlike inside the classroom that you can really interact with your students. So I also gave a seminar about forming the youth of today in the new normal. So I gave their strategies, for example, on how we form the kids, meaning our students, in the new normal. So, for example, we need really to prepare lessons and incorporate it with values, and incorporating those lessons will be activities at home that can be done by students, meaning with their family. So, we are now in the context of a new classroom, so why not use strategies that can help students form values while they are at home, because we cannot form them right now because they are not at school. So why not do activities and lessons where we can form them at home together with their family. So now it's really a hand-in-hand experience with the teacher and the family in doing this online learning.
Very interesting, a collaborative way of teaching. Now, some of our teachers, especially in Holy Cross, said this. Based on one interview, said Miss Andre Marnelli Baluyut, where she prefers the new normal because of the new opportunities for flexible learning and bonding with the parents' academic journey. How do you manage and overcome these struggles? Especially right now, there are some situations wherein parents still do not accept this way of education, as well as some teachers, and they are shouting academic freeze. What's your comment about this?
Well, when we're talking about education, we've been conditioned that education can only be done inside the classroom, in the four corners of the classroom. But now, remember, everything is in constant flux. Everything changes. Now, we are in the new normal, and this will be adapted now. this will not go away anymore. This new normal and online learning and also modular learning. This has been done. This is not something new. Probably they are just being shocked and they are shouting academic freeze because this is a new experience for them. So whenever we experience, remember in psychology, when we experience a new experience, a new thing for us, we try to struggle, we try to resist. But these things like modular learning have been done in open universities. Online learning has been done in many universities, especially abroad, and flipped classroom wherein there's a combination between online learning and classroom learning has been done before. So probably this is just a new experience for many people. That is why they are shouting academic freeze, that they are saying that there is no learning in online learning. We are debunking it right now. We are debunking it right now actually on how we do it. So we need just to incorporate new strategies in online learning in order for us to be very effective in teaching our own way. So if some teachers would prefer online learning, then go for it. But of course, some teachers who are not really, we're not stereotyping them or we're not generalizing, but they are not much more on technology, meaning they are not techie savvy. They are not also like young generations who are social media citizens right now. We call them netizens. So they are struggling. But for me, this online learning gives really a fresh start for us, a new perspective in how we look education, for it to become more meaningful. Because whether we like it or not, this is not the last pandemic that we're going to have. There will be more situation wherein online learning would be helpful, and I would say academic freeze, if you do not believe in online learning, then do not enroll. Okay? But if you want to be a part of this history wherein we start modular learning and online learning, then go for it. We need, because this is just we're just on the testing. We're just testing the waters. Okay, there will be many doubts, but later on, as we go on forward, we're going to polish it and everything will be normal.
So thank you very much, Sir Balil, for that wonderful answer.
Thank you.
And I hope, guys, you have learned a lot of this. And let's go back to understand further what Sir Miggy has taught us. Thank you very much, Sir Miggy. I was amazed by the philosophical answers of Sir Miggy Baluyot. And it further enhances my concept and synthesizes his ideas to my philosophical theory. Even though I gave these 4 problems in my video about the problems of the 21st century learners, one thing that I am promoting right now to my students and evolving since the day of time is mirroring. In my philosophical theory, mirroring is a evolutionary synchronization between 2 individuals to transcend in one idea. What that means is 2 ideas become 1 and 1 become 2. How is that so? One is adopting one personality and wisdom. And if one individual has connected to the hearts and minds of individual, now one itself is trying to interconnect with the another, which results now to both becoming better, which is 2 become 1 and 1 become 2. The problem with our educational system is sometimes we just teach for the sake of teaching and not teach for the sake of difference, which results to my major problems. As a result, if we try to first connect with people, then adopt their personality, then now when we adopt, then synchronize with their personalities with us, then synchronize our wisdom with us and vice versa, the wisdom will transcend further, which results to 2 individuals synchronized and transcend further to the ultimate being. With that being said, mirroring is more of reflecting oneself. Although some say that if a mirror breaks, it will never come back. But there is a tiny flaw regarding it that we choose to become mirrors. There are some mirrors, like for example, this mirror in one car, it's very durable, or the specific word is sturdy, it is hard to break. So it's up to us if what kind of mirror that we're going to adopt. But more often than not, it's your own mirror that describes your trust. And that's where trust goes beyond the mirrors of individualities. So more often than not, to put it in simple, for those who are watching my video, mirroring is simply more of embracing one's individual. Then when one individual is very light with you, that individual now wants to become with you, and you wants to become with the other, which results to both individuals become stronger, firmer, and wiser. And that already has been proven to some of my classes. A great example for this is one of my students, Marnelli Tan Aguas. Marnelli Tan Aguas was my former student in Holy Cross College. She's now a full-fledged teacher. Now, that student of mine hates my strategy. But what I did is, instead of scolding that person because she is a stubborn one, I adopted her personality, which eventually she just needs emotional care. She likes when she is told she's beautiful and sexy. When you adopt her personality, suddenly her intellectual drive suddenly appears, because there's a saying that no matter how intellectual a person is, if his affective side is restrained, his intellectual formation is restrained. So more often than not, mirroring is simply individual reflections of personalities willingly to embrace towards both transcendental evolution of wisdom. And not only you become intelligent, but you also become close towards unity and diversity. Well, after all of this, what have we learned? Did I learn something? Did you learn something? Did all of us learn something? Now, it only proves one thing. The problem with the educational system is not us, but the problem is within ourselves. One of my webinars that I attended has the special quote: people tend to hate when they don't know what it is. With that being said, if we ourselves reflect that all things are negative, we are showing to them negative things. But if all things are adopted and we evolve it, and simultaneously all of us show evolution, maybe people will transcend. As my philosophical theory say about mirroring, if we reflect our individual actions and ours reflects one another towards evolution, maybe there will be a change in our society of today. Just maybe, if people only reflect hope to each individual as mirrors.